Hi, I'm author and speaker Robin Mead. Thank you for joining me. This week, the theme is dealing with forgotten pain, and the full quote from my book, Fierce Wholeness, is dealing with forgotten pain, things you stuff down just to survive, is serious business. And that is like so true. The first 5 chapters of my book, Fierce Wholeness, here's the cover, deal with this forgotten pain. And then the first 5 chapter questions in the companion journal and at the end of the book, Fierce Wholeness, deal with unpacking this forgotten pain. So you might ask, why do I need to unpack this? You know, it happened so long ago. I just like forgive and forget and move on. Well, so there's some pieces in that. So some people are not able to forgive and move on, and even if you are able to forgive and move on, if you don't unpack it, you won't be able to move on. You won't be able to move forward as a whole person until you go through the process of unpacking it. And it is a process, not a checklist. You can't just say, oh, I unpacked this part and I unpacked this part and I'm done and move on. You know, there's some things that, especially if the trauma happened as a child to you, you know, there's a lot of things that need to be unpacked. So pieces of you may be able to move forward, but your whole person will not be able to move forward. And then the other reason why you can't just move over it is glossing over it is not a viable solution. And because there, undealt with trauma leads to unhealthy patterns in your life. Like they'll seep through, they'll come in, and it has its roots in this event or these events that happen to you. And until you unpack those patterns of behavior are going to continue. And how could you possibly move to forgive and forget if, number one, you haven't called out the event for what it was? Oh, yeah, that happened, but it was no big deal. But it was a big deal. And it hurt you. And so you need to acknowledge that hurt. Now, we're not talking about dwelling on it or using it as an excuse for other unhealthy behavior. What we're talking about is saying, this happened to me and it was wrong, and I need to acknowledge the full impact of that hurt, acknowledge how I feel about it, and grieve what was lost. So maybe that's a piece of your childhood that was lost, that you're never going to get back because you're an adult now. So you need to grieve that. And then if the behavior, if the events are real recurring, then that's something that you need to set boundaries for in your adulthood. You're an adult now, so you could set those boundaries to prevent that from happening anymore to you. So when you consider this process, not checklist, but a process, you're really going to need a support network. And, you know, I have found for myself, I have friends and I have a church that's very supportive now, but not everybody has that. So you want to be around people who encourage you to grow, who encourage you to grow personally, who encourage you to grow with God, who encourage you. And you also, I would highly recommend you consider a relationship with Jesus Christ. I know that this, and I say this in the book, this has made all the difference for me in my healing, because Jesus promises never to leave you, never to forsake you. He will stick with you until this healing is complete. And when you have asked him into your heart to walk with you, he works to restore what is lost, what has been lost to sin in your life. And I'm not talking about sin that you committed, although that's true too. I'm talking about sins that have been committed to you or sin that's in general in this world. God is always working to restore what sin has destroyed in our lives. And he also makes some promises to us. He promises us discernment, and we can ask him for wisdom. He promises that his word is going to renew our minds so that we're not thinking of ourselves. That trauma makes us look at ourselves as if we're a certain person. But God sees us very differently. Psalm 139 talks about how many times a day God thinks about us and how precious we are to him. And, you're a lot more than the events that happened to you as a child. And God sees you as your whole self, and he sees you healed, and he wants you to see yourself that way too. So keep this in mind as you read. If you haven't purchased my book, Fierce Wholeness, then I will put links in the comments down below to where you can get one. And please like my author page and follow me on social media. I'll put those links in there too. God bless you and have a great week.